File management is a critical part of setting up your website. We should have parallel files on our home computer or our development computer and on the web page. We're going to do this together. We're going to set up the file structure for your first assignment. So you're going to want to go and find some images. You can use your own images if you have them. Or if you need to grab images from the web, I want you to go to a site that has royalty-free pictures that you do not have to cite the sources on. So you can go look for Creative Commons pictures that allow you to use it without attribution, or you can go to Pixabay. And I will typically in this class use Pixabay as my source for pictures. And so I can go to pixabay.com, and everything's free, royalty free. You don't need to cite where you got it from. For my class, you only need to cite where you got it from if you're using it from some other place other than Pixabay. But you're also welcome to use your own photos if you want. So I like dogs, so I'm going to look for puppies. Lots of great puppy pictures. So I'm going to need to take some of these photos, which I'm going to use as samples for my first web page. And I'm also going to need to do some other things. I want to start setting up my file structure, which is going to be critical for the entire class. So I'm going to start by going into my documents. And you could do this on your documents. You could do it on your desktop. As long as you know where you're setting up the folder, you set it up how you'd like to. So I'm going to go into Documents, and I'm going to create a Web 105 folder. So I'm going to do New and Folder. And when we're naming things in this class, it should all be lowercase. There should be no spaces. So you really have two options. You can name it Web 105, and it should all be lowercase, but you may use hyphens. Underscores are also allowed, but Google prefers that you use hyphens, and it will treat the words as separate words with a space, and that will help for you to rank higher on the search engine. So if you go to Google, things will come up faster. So we typically use hyphens. So that's the name of my folder. And then I'm going to go into here, and we're going to do, we're going to create our first project, or our first folder. So I'm going to create a new folder, and I'm going to call it Introduction, because you're going to do a page that just introduces some stuff about you, some things that you like. And we'll be doing that in the next assignment. This assignment, we're just setting up your folder structure. So I want the introduction, and then we're going to put a couple of photos in here. And when we download these, and so I want, let's see, I can get a little closer. Not the greatest picture, but that is a Bouvier. Or I could use one. Now, notice these are sponsored images from Shutterstock. I'd have to pay for these. That's a Bouvier with very long fur, but I'm going to go ahead and select it, and I'm going to do a free download. I should have grabbed a picture of my dog. So when you're choosing the pictures, you want to choose the largest size that you'd actually have it show up as on your web page. In this case, I want it to be small. So I'm going to select the smallest size, because if you have a larger size, it's just going to load and take up a lot of space that you don't need. And then I'm going to choose to download it, and I'm going to put it into Documents, Web 105, and the Introduction folder. So each website we create will have its own unique file name for the folder. Every project we create will end up having an index page. But here I just want to save this, and it's going to be saved as a JPEG image. That's the most common image type for photos. But you want to give it a more meaningful name. So I'm going to put in Bouvier, because that's a good, meaningful, easy to remember name, and it would also work for search engine optimization. I'm going to save that, and you're going to want to have 2 to 3 photos. I'm going to do one more just to go through the process. And the other thing I'm really into is swing dancing. So I'm going to look up swing dancing, and that's a pretty good photo for that. So I'm going to do the free download. Again, I'm going to select the smallest image, and I'm going to download it, and I'm going to call it swing dancing. And that will save it as a PNG, another type of image. And I deliberately picked this because PNG images, ping images we call them, are used for outlines or drawings, simple shapes, not photographs as much, though you can use them for photos as well. We'll have a whole lesson on how to choose file types on images. So we're going to need those files. And right now we're just trying to set it up so we can actually create our code, which will be in your next lesson. But we want to have an actual file for our HTML document. And we're going to use, you should have set up Visual Studio Code. So this is probably the first time you're opening it. And so when you start, I'm going to go ahead and I like to create my folders first. That helps me maintain the folder organization. So I'm going to open the folder and I'm going to go into Documents. And then I'm going to make this a little bit bigger and easier to work with. I'm going to open Web 105 and I'm going to open my Introduction folder and I'm going to select the folder. So now it has my images in here and I have the options of creating a new file, a new folder, refreshing the Explorer. So if I add something on the outside, I can do that. So since I'm in my Introduction folder, I'm going to have to create my first HTML file. So I'm going to hit New File and I'm going to create index.html. And every project that you do must contain an index page. You have to have it. Your setup won't work unless you have the index page. And this is going to be critical because what we want to do is to mirror our site, our folder structure, and the pages from our computer onto the website. So at this point, I want to see that you have set up your website correctly and that you've done these steps. And you can show me this by using the snipping tool, and you can either grab a picture here of the Visual Studio Code, or you can go into your File Explorer and you can show me here. And actually, I'd prefer this, though either one shows me the path. And I'm going to use the Windows snipping tool to do this. And one of the things I want to show you is how to use the snipping tool. If you're working on a Mac, Command-Shift-4 does the same thing, and it will save an image to your desktop. Here, I'm going to use, and I'm going to do a little search for it. And you may notice that I tend to have my toolbar on the left-hand side instead of the bottom. It's a habit I'm in because when I'm working in the classroom, it's easier for students to see. Okay, so we'll go to Snip and Sketch. They've changed it. Close that one. And so I'm going to capture part of your screen. So I'm going to do New. And what I want to do is I want to grab, and I'm going to just grab both here, but you can grab either. I want to be able to see the file structure. And then you would save this. And you can put it anywhere that you want on your computer because you're just going to hand it in on Canvas to show that you have your file folder structure set up correctly before you move on to creating your HTML file. So it doesn't really matter what you call it. I'm going to call it Introduction. And I'm going to save it to my desktop because once I've handed it in, then I will probably delete it. So I've got it out here, and then I can go into Canvas and submit that file.